Well, Venezuela very much dominating the front pages today again. And we can speak to someone now who's an author on the Venezuelan Revolution and Marxism and was a close friend and collaborator of former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. That person is Alan Woods from Swansea. Hello, Alan. Bore da.
Bore da.
Hello, thank you for coming on this morning. How did this come about then, your friendship, your collaboration with Hugo Chavez?
Well, first of all, one point, there's a lot of absolute nonsense talked about Venezuela. It's been talked about Venezuela for many years, to my knowledge. The first lie, it is a blatant lie, is that it was Chavez was a dictator. Chavez was not a dictator. On the contrary, in 1998, he won a sweeping election, which nobody contests. Nobody disagrees with that fact. And the simple explanation is this. When we speak about the Bolivarian Revolution, it was a genuine revolution, which I had the pleasure and the honor of participating in directly. I have personal knowledge of this. I was personally very closely acquainted with Hugo Chavez for some years. I also was acquainted with Nicolas Maduro and also with Delcy Rodriguez, who I knew even when she was in London before. She worked in the embassy. But that's a side issue. The main thing is that the people voted overwhelmingly for Chavez, only for one reason. He gave a voice for the masses who had no voice, the millions of dispossessed peasants, workers, poor people, unemployed, and so on. It was a country, Venezuela, was indeed sitting on an ocean of oil, not the world's greatest reserves. I think that figure's wrong, but it doesn't matter. I won't go there. But anyway, a colossally, potentially rich country with plenty of oil and other resources, and the mass of the people, this point is never made, was in a state of abject poverty, misery, exploitation, and oppression, with nobody to express their opinions and views.
And yet, why did you, apologies for interrupting, why then did the United Nations basically say his regime was brutal and point to the fact that thousands of people were killed under him? 7 million Venezuelans fled because of economic collapse under his leadership.
Well, thousands of people were not killed under Chavez. That's plainly untrue. In fact, I don't think anybody was killed under Chavez from that point of view. People have subsequently left Venezuela in large numbers, that's true, because of the collapse of the economy. But nobody explains the reason for this. And the reason is quite simply, there are many reasons. The fundamental reason was the systematic sabotage and sanctions inflicted on Venezuela by the United States of America.
You're talking about the sanctions?
I'm talking about everything. In effect, it amounted to an economic blockade of Venezuela, aimed only at one thing, to sabotage and to undermine the existing government. Good God. There were, I don't know how many attempts of a coup d'etat while Chavez was in power, although he won many elections, they were not contested by the United Nations or by anybody else, not even by the United States, I believe. They tried. There was a coup d'etat, I think it was 2002. There was a spontaneous uprising, and he came back to power immediately. That was defeated. The US has been systematically defeated, and now they have to resort to this act of absolute violence and kidnapping. Yes, what the hell? If it's not kidnapping, what is it?
Well, they point to the legitimacy of Nicolas Maduro's leadership, not questioning Hugo Chavez's leadership, but they point to the fact that Nicolas Maduro does not have the support of his people.
Okay, I'll come to that in a moment. Now, how many people stated or were firmly convinced of the illegitimacy of Donald Trump's election? Many people, at the last time I'm referring to, many people questioned that. Did that give any foreign power the right to intervene militarily against the United States to impose a different result of the election? It did not. No country in the world has such a right. And that goes entirely, you mentioned the United Nations, that is entirely contradictory to the basic principles and charter of the UN itself. So therefore, legally speaking, this has got not a single leg to stand on. But to go by, you asked me earlier a question I didn't answer, I apologize. I got to know Hugo Chavez because as a Marxist and an author, which I am, he read some of my, in particular, he read a book I wrote years ago called Reason and Revolt, which impressed him greatly. He asked to see me, and I had long discussions with him, one-to-one discussions, in Miraflores, which I had many times. And we forged a very good relationship. His, what you call them revolution, if you like, or reformers, if you like, far-reaching, for the first time, they gave what? Free education to the people of Venezuela. They'd never had such a thing. They had free health service. The Cubans sent doctors, very efficient doctors, by the way, paid for by Venezuelan oil. Again, the people had no access to doctors. For the first time, poor children had access to universities, things of this sort. These are immense. Now, that brought upon his head the wrath of the United States, which does not want to see these things, not even in the United States, by the way. Certainly don't want to see it in any country of Latin America. By the way, the whole purpose of this, let's forget about legitimacy, elections, democracy, forget it. But Donald Trump himself stated bluntly, brazenly, the real cause, which is to seize Venezuela's oil. A blatant theft of
Well, they point to, I mean, they say, we played that clip there of the US ambassador, Mike Waltz, who's defended his country's actions, saying that though the largest oil reserves in the world, whether they are or not, but they're significant, aren't they, could not be left in the hands of an illegitimate leader. That is their argument. Brilliant speaking to you this morning, Alan Woods. Thank you for coming on. Alan Woods there from Swansea, author on the Venezuelan Revolution and Marxism, a remarkable story, close friend and collaborator of former Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez, and has also met Nicolas Maduro as well in his time. It is 18 minutes past 8.